All right, welcome to a new episode of Farm Like a Hero, folks. I'm Richard Perkins. Today I'm here with Carina van Steenbergen, who started a snail farm in 2019 under the mentorship of a Belgian producer to explore how they fare under the Swedish climate conditions. Escargot is pretty uncommon here, yet it's a very nourishing ingredient that gives chefs a lot of possibilities with minimal impacts on the environment and taking up very little space as a meat-producing enterprise. At the same time, Carina is running a small market garden and layer flock, mostly to complement the snail farm as it comes into full production, and later so that she'll have control over the whole process of preparing the snails for a saleable product with crops such as garlic and parsley, etc. It's a process that I know virtually nothing about, and I'm guessing most of you listening also probably don't. So Carina, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you for making me a part of this whole hero experience, although I don't feel so much as a hero, but thanks for having me.
You were saying a bit of the history before we were recording, but in France, obviously, that's part of the traditional cuisine, and the bit in Belgium and the once French bit.
Yeah, France is still the big escargot country. Belgium, especially the south side, is Wallonie. It's very much the French-speaking part of Belgium, and also there you have several snail growers. And also in the Netherlands you have some, but in Belgium it's for us it's common to have a snail farm here and there. Here in Sweden, I get a lot of attention of the media. I don't think anybody would have bothered if I started a snail farm there.
Sure.
Locally, maybe, but.
How many snail farmers are in Sweden then?
What did you say?
How many snail farmers are there in Sweden?
For what I know, I'm the only one. But for what I heard, is in the 80s, a French guy started one. And then on this big island, Gotland, there's a very small one, but they more grow for own use in their own cafe, restaurant. So for me, it's really the meaning that I start growing them for restaurants, because they are still on the menu all over Sweden in several restaurants and hotels. But that's all import. Right. It cannot be different. I like to eat them myself. Mostly fried. You make a good dough when you wrap them in and you fry them in hot oil, and then a bit of salt, and they are so good then, I think. But also because I wanted to, I think there are already enough producers of meat and lamb and sausages, and let them have their skills. Start producing a niche product here in Sweden was appealing to me. But most of all, it's very sustainable. You can grow a lot of very nutritious food on a very small surface. And I really don't need a lot of water. I have a ECB tank in the tunnel so that the water is not too cold. And they get a shower every evening. So I have in my tunnel a mist sprinkler system. So when the sun is gone from the tunnel, it's standing perfect, I think, because it's the place that has the quickest shadow in the afternoon. I start spraying them quite early because it's so hot now. In the morning, they also get some minutes, some water, but they need a dry period during the day, although now it's a bit too warm for them, so it takes a bit long before them to wake up. So I spray, and then after 20-30 minutes, they come forward. They come out of their sleep, and then because they are night animals, they start to get active. And then I make sure they have their feed and
So tell us a bit about I want to hear about the whole process, but you had a mentor in Belgium, you said? That you're
yes, I have. Her name is Ingrid van der Aura, a very Flemish name. And she's a biologist. She is a biologist working in a fertility clinic in Belgium. But as a hobby more, she has our own snail farm already for almost 10 years. And I was contacting her also because of the language. I speak French, but my mother language is Dutch, and she's Dutch speaking also. And then we went overhaul the process. We were looking together at the climate here in Sweden. And actually she's still there. When I have questions, I have to call her, mail her, and she's always there with the right answers or the help I sometimes need, although lately not so much anymore. It's just now, she gave me the big advice to do it step by step. So last year I bought in a batch of 50,000 snails, 30,000, because I have two sorts. A lot of people think it's this snails you find easy in the garden after the rain with the shell, the Helix pomacia, the Burgundy snail. And that's still a snail that's often used in France to prepare, but that because people were also picking them from the wild, it's not allowed to pick them from the wild anymore. There are several reasons also why you grow snails in a controlled environment. Snails easily take up like heavy metal or poison stuff, and they store them in their organs. So when we eat them, then they are not clean anymore. So we take in those. They can have it, they store it in their organs, but that doesn't mean they get sick or so from it. But when we have it, we can get sick.
Yeah.
And she also gave me the advice. So I have two sorts: the big gray one and the small gray one, Helix aspersa maxima and Helix aspersa Muller. That's the small one, because the small one can have a little bit of frost minus temperatures, while the big sort not. When you really have an unexpected night going -4 or so, they die. But they are the two sorts that are mostly grown because they have the most light and tender meat. Also, the small sort is easier to process because the big one has a liver that you actually have to take away. And that was going over all expectations good with both sorts, but then in the winter time it was going wrong because here the winter in Sweden is quite long. So I have to rethink my process and make sure I can start earlier next season. And this year, but because of COVID, I only have a small sort because I was buying in 2-month-old snails coming from Poland. And then my plan was to have 100,000 of the big sort, babies, and let them grow. But it turned out by the farmer in Poland, by COVID, it turned out completely different.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit too much mortality in the beginning of the season, but I could pull that right again. And for the moment, I have really some beauties crawling around there. I can really enjoy in the evening when my tunnel is transforming into a kind of rainforest, going there and see them crawling. And then I think, in spite of this hard beginning this year, I have some real beauties going around there.
I've got so many questions, Carina. So would it be like, what's the life cycle of a snail and the sort of time periods you're dealing with? And do you think that it's possible to keep them year round like you just need a heated space, as it were?
Well, a snail farm is very sustainable. 1 kilo of feed is giving 1 kilo of meat. You don't need a lot of water to keep a snail farm going. They need their amount of water every day, but it's very minimal.
Hang on, a 1-to-1 conversion ratio. That's like more efficient than a fish, which has got cold blood and doesn't fight gravity. So that's and it's vegetable crop, right? So it's
no, they eat mainly they eat some kind of flour with a lot of carbohydrates and amino acids in. because the life cycle of a snail, they get born, and then the growth is going exponentially. They grow very fast when they get the right feed and the right circumstances, of course.